So I'm a little conflicted on where the Bulls should go in the draft. Part of that being, of course, because at number 7, you don't know who's going to be available. But part of me thinks that if there is a weak link in their starting 5, it's Kris Dunn's offense. Because his jump shot is not really threatening, his pull-up game is not freaking out defenses and all that stuff, right? Because when I look at the rest of their starting 5, I think we should remember last year, we didn't really get to see the real Bulls. I mean, Wendell played how many games total? Basically half the year. Markkanen played 52 games. They had Otto Porter for 15 games. By the way, in those 15 games, they were 7-8, which I think is something we should care about. And while all this was happening, Zach LaVine had his best season. So, I don't know. I think of this world where it's like a point guard like, let's say, Darius Garland or Kobe White, who's more a natural at that position and is a little more threatening with their jump shots and a little better in the pick and roll and things like that. And then LaVine, Porter, Markkanen, Wendell, everybody healthy, everybody going into this season with no coaching controversy or anything like that. Maybe that's the route to go if you're the Bulls. Now, there are other options. There's always the risk of Cam Reddish, but I don't know if this team needs another guy who cares about his shot like that. I mean, to be fair, the 2 point guards I just named both care about shooting as well, but I think those two are going to care a little bit more about making sure the ball is going around to everybody, which, to be fair to Kris Dunn, is maybe his best offensive trait. But even so, if you're a starting point guard in today's NBA, you got to be a threat to score, right? So maybe Darius Garland or Kobe White can be the actual point guard, I guess, for the Bulls in that starting position. But then I think Kris Dunn can be awesome as a high 20s dude who plays off the ball and is sometimes the primary ball handler because his defense is there, his energy is there, and I think he's got some potential to play off of it as well in terms of transition and maybe get himself some more open corner threes as opposed to having to have the ball a lot. I do think there's potential there. I feel like he can be this team's version of Marcus Smart, where, yeah, sometimes it's a little ugly on offense, but the positive impact overall is still there. And selecting a point guard may be the way to make that happen. Now, another player who I think could be intriguing for the Bulls is Brandon Clarke, because while Markkanen and Wendell seems to be the front court that this team's going to roll with, you're still going to need a guy who can kind of play with both of those dudes, I guess. And Brandon Clarke, he kind of gives off a Paul Millsap vibe, where 6'9" dude, and he cares about defense and shows some signs offensively with getting a little better with his handle, and he didn't shoot too many threes in college, but there's reason to believe he can actually figure that out in the NBA, to the point where defenses at least have to care about him. At least hopefully. I mean, it could be a Pascal Siakam situation. And I didn't mention Brandon Clarke when I was talking about the Suns. Probably should have, but the one thing with Clarke is he's projected to go a little lower in the first round, so that can be dicey territory, but we see guys selected non-lottery who end up being better than half the lottery picks, so, that could be the way to go. Now, at the same time, they could just move Otto Porter to the 4 spot at times. If you want to, take Markkanen off the floor, move Porter down to the 4 spot, and then you could play a similar game there. If you want to try Markkanen at center, then you can move Porter down to the 4. So there's room there as well. And I guess if you were going to go that route, then I guess that opens up the idea once again for a point guard or maybe even another wing, which I don't know if Clarke is really a wing type of dude. He's more of a be around the basket, and you hope that the perimeter game can develop. And then at this point, I mean, I guess that once again opens up the Cam Reddish thing, and like I keep saying, somebody is going to select Cam Reddish. But even at that point, if you're thinking about a wing, you could look at Romeo Langford. I mean, his jumper has questions because he was kind of bad in college. I don't know. I mean, you already got LaVine who likes to have the ball. Langford likes to have the ball, and there's questions about his jumper. So, I don't know. If the Bulls were really set on getting a wing player because they like the idea of Kris Dunn at point guard, and, or they could just, get a veteran point guard or something. and then you think that you can move Porter to the 4 spot enough for where that can make sense, then maybe you're looking at Cam Reddish. Now, is there a chance the Bulls could also look towards like Sekou Demboya or, well, basically him? I don't know. I mean, I think he kind of has to play the 4 or the 5 spot, and I kind of feel a little better about Brandon Clark's ability to play off of a guy like Wendell, because not only does Clark's jumper at least have some idea of being something one day, not to say that Demboya's doesn't, but Clark also shows more abilities as a ball handler, somebody who can post up and can attack on closeouts and things like that, whereas Demboya is more of a really good athlete who has to figure out basically everything else. Now, just because I'm in this range of like number 10 or whatever, I mean, Jackson Hayes exists. I don't think he makes much sense for them because they already have Wendell. Same thing can be said for Bol, and then at that point we're getting to like Nasir Little, and I mean, he has potential to be a 3-and-D dude, but yeah. Basically, there's a lot of options the Bulls have, and I'm not confident to say that they should do any one thing. I mean, that's kind of the nature of when we're in like the 7th pick area, is there's 9 million opinions you can have, and no one's necessarily wrong for their take, but of course you got to pick somebody. And if you make me have one idea over others, I guess I'll go back to the point guard idea. Just getting Kris Dunn out of that lead playmaker role. Not to say that he's like the primary dude, because Levine has the ball a lot anyway, but yeah, I really like the idea of Kris Dunn as basically a 2 guard, regardless of what his actual height is. There is reason to be excited. I don't remember if I touched on this already earlier, but they had a lot of injuries. I mean, Markkanen and Wendell played about half the year. Levine played like 60-something. They also had that whole coaching controversy, and we'll have to see if their coach is actually good or not, but I mean, that on top of the fact they were pretty good by their standards with Otto Porter. They were basically a 500 team, and the lineup numbers with Otto and Levine and Markkanen are all pretty good, so yeah, the Bulls might be getting it going this upcoming year.